Plastic is an amazing material. It has improved, shaped, and changed our lives. In fact, the modern world wouldn't exist without it. Computers, mobile phones, medical equipment are all made of plastic. But we need to properly take care of plastic waste. In Sweden, we incinerate a large part of our used plastic packaging, creating CO2 emissions that affect our climate. In other parts of the world, used plastic ends up in landfill or in the ocean. Svensk Plaståtervinning is already operating Europe's largest and most efficient sorting facility for plastic packaging in Motala. But this isn't enough. Now, we're taking the next step forward through the construction of Site Zero, a hyper-modern and unique facility. With it, we'll not only reach our targets, we will surpass them. With Site Zero, we're aiming for our vision, that all plastic packaging is recycled and becomes new plastic products, completely without harmful emissions. With Site Zero's 60,000 square meters, we will double our sorting capacity to more than 200,000 tons per year and become the largest recycling facility for plastic packaging in the world. The new sorting process is unique. We will go from managing 4 types of plastic to sorting 12 different kinds. And it doesn't stop there. Any small parts of plastic that remain after the sorting process are separated to become composite products or to be sent to chemical recycling. Because at Site Zero, zero plastic packaging goes to incineration. Waste that isn't plastic, that cannot be recycled, is sent to the energy recovery of the future with CCS technology. Here, the carbon dioxide generated during combustion is captured and sent back into the ground, while zero emissions are released into the atmosphere. At Site Zero, plastic becomes part of the circular economy, where 100% of the material is recycled and there is zero climate impact.
Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to this nice seminar working and discussing on polypropylene plastic films and how they can be recycled, which is organized by FTI in Sweden and Svensk Plaståtervinning, or Swedish Plastic Recycling. Welcome to the guests, the speakers. Welcome to the audience live here in Stockholm, and welcome to all of you also at the screens online following this event. We are together in a community today of about 250 people, so we can feel that we are a lot of people interested in this particular topic. So basically, first of all, let me take a few words on myself. I'm Ole Jan Myhre. I'm working with packaging as a packaging advisor and project development in the company Norner in Norway. I'm also their market manager, but most importantly, I work with packaging and projects. And of course, these days, packaging is very much more about how to recycle packaging than develop new packaging, but how to develop packaging made to be recycled. And that's what we also focus on in this event today. So basically, also, I would like to say a few words about the program. We will have first 3 speakers, and this will take approximately 1 hour. This will be followed by a question and answer session. And during the presentations, you can submit your questions also online for those of you who are on the screens. And for you who are here in Stockholm live, you can also, of course, during the panel debate which follows the presentations, ask your questions. The debate will be also about half an hour. And then at 14:30, we will have a break after the presentations and the first panel discussion. Half an hour break, coffee, breathe a little bit, read some mails, whatever you want to do. And then we are back at 3 o'clock to have the second, even more interesting session. So I hope you all online are able to find the little place where you can put in your questions. It should be easily available there. And then hope also that the technique will follow us well today. The technique is supported by a great team here, so I'm quite confident that this will be fine. The first speaker today is Mattias Philipsson. Mattias is the CEO of Swedish Plastic Recycling, and I would say at least the key person behind the Site Zero, fantastic new site in Motala. I think at least all Swedes should be very proud of it, and I'm Norwegian, so I think Norway should look to Sweden in this respect and see what is happening here. Mattias has a passion for plastics and recycling. He has background both technical and business, so he knows that in order to take care of this recycling business, there are both aspects of importance, technology, and also that it must make sense from a business point of view somehow. And he's also a member of the delegation for circular economy by the Swedish government, and he will be introducing to you today the Site Zero, and I hope that you will all welcome him because he stands right left for me. Welcome, Mattias.
Thank you, Ole Jan, for that great and nice introduction. Well, my name is Mattias Philipsson, and I'm CEO of Swedish Plastic Recycling. This is a big moment for me. This is a big moment for me. This is a big moment for Swedish Plastic Recycling. Today, we are introducing a new type of plastic packaging that will be recyclable in the future. So by doing this, we avoid incineration. And when we avoid incineration, we will lower the carbon emissions for our customers and their packaging. We will also lower the costs for our customers because it will be cheaper not to incinerate the plastic packaging. And of course, we will help our customers reach their climate targets by shifting from incineration to recycling. So this is a great moment. I'm also very proud that we have been able to gather some real experts from all over Europe. They will help me explain how we are going to do this in the future. And I thank you very much for taking your time and travel all the way here to Stockholm and helping us with this great seminar. So let me just give you some background. We have introduced something called the plastic leap, or plastsprånget in Swedish. That's basically our strategy to reach our target, our recycling targets. As you know, most of you, I think, the EU has decided that in 2025, the member states should reach 50% recycling rates of plastic packaging. We are one of the few companies in Europe that actually openly are presenting our recycling rates. We started with that last year, and the first year it was 15.4%. That's the starting point, and you should know that plastic packaging from households are the most difficult types of plastic that we can recycle, and that's why those numbers are quite low. But the important thing is that we have a strategy to dramatically increase recycling rates. In just 3 or 4 years, we will go from 15 to 55. I mentioned to you that the target for the EU is 50%, and Swedes always tend to have to be a little bit better, so we decided 55. If we reach there, I will be extremely proud. It will be a challenge, it will be difficult, but it is doable. This strategy consists of basically 3 steps. 1, our customers, the producers, need to design for recycling. It doesn't matter how technically advanced our facilities are. In basics, you need to follow some guidelines. One of the tools is this plastic manual, which we revise each year. This is the English version that is downloadable from today from our webpage. I recommend it warmly. Other types of things that we are doing is working with eco-modulation or differentiated packaging fees. That basically means that if we put a packaging on the market that is not recyclable, you pay 55% more in packaging fee than if it would have been recyclable. Last but not least, regarding design for recycling, we also offer a test lab where we actually can take packaging from our customers and evaluate them and test them at our plant in Motala in order to give feedback how to improve design for recycling. Secondly, we know that we need to improve collection a lot. Today we are collecting maybe 50% of the household packaging that is actually being put on the market. So we need to increase this dramatically in order to reach the targets. The strategy consists of two things. First, we have support from the legislation, and beginning in a year or two or something like that, we will need to increase curbside collection. That basically means that the quality will get better and people tend to sort out more packaging. And this is, of course, very good. Secondly, we will work closely with the incineration plants in Sweden. They are, just as we are, trying to avoid incinerating plastic packaging. Thereby, they are building sorting plants or MRFs before the incineration plants in order to separate the plastics, which then can be recycled by us. So we will definitely see an increase in those kind of investment, and this will also, of course, increase collection rates. When we made this plan, we realized, okay, if we increase collection, we need more capacity. And this was just after we commissioned the current plant in Motala in 2019. So I went to the owners and told them we need to make new investments. At first, I have to be honest with you, they weren't too happy, but quite soon they realized that this is the way to go. Because in order to make this investment in Site Zero, we will lower the cost for our customers and we will lower their carbon emissions. So this is, makes sense from all perspectives in my view. So let's look a little bit more on Site Zero. Site Zero is situated in Motala as well, and the existing plant will be integrated in this plant. We have trying to follow some baselines when we design this plant. One, avoid at all costs incineration. So the packaging that enters this building should be recycled here or in the next step. Secondly, try to avoid any carbon emissions, because if we avoid them, our customers will lower their carbon emissions. So this is crucial for me and for our customers. Third, try to avoid downcycling. Keep the value of the material so you can keep it in the closed loop recycling. Circular recycling is about sorting out and recycle each plastic type separately. That's the main target for us. I will show you a little bit what's below the roof. So this plant is planned to have a capacity of 200,000 tons, making it the biggest plant in the world. We will sort out 10 different fractions. One of those is what we are going to discuss today, PP film. And we will sort them out and recycle them mechanically separately in order to maintain circularity. For those more tricky fractions like laminates, that is very hard to mechanically recycle, we will introduce next week or in this week, we have a press release where we will show what company we will work together with. But I'm very excited to see if this will succeed. If that fails as well, we have this last resort. That's basically to make composite products out of what's left. That's the last thing we want to do, but it's still better than incineration. And for me, it's very important to start with mechanical recycling, what's left, chemical recycling, and what's eventually left after that, composite products. All right, I think I have some time left. Yes, I do. Good. I mentioned to you as well another important topic, and that's I don't only want to recycle our customers' packaging, but I also want to make it as climate neutral as possible, thereby also lowering their carbon emissions, because we are part of their value chain. We are at least scope 3, and that means they have to show in their environmental report what their packaging is creating. And therefore, it's very important that I also want to lower my customers' CO2 emissions. 30% of what we are receiving to the plant today is actually not plastic packaging. It's other types of waste, and that will always go back to incineration. And even though I try to show you that basically we are aiming to recycle all plastic packaging, there will be eventually some left. And since those will also go to incineration, it's important we do it in the right way. So at the beginning of this week, we had a press statement where we showed a cooperation with a Norwegian company. And they are very much ahead of CCS technology, where you actually can store the CO2 emissions coming from the incineration process. So we are very excited and proud about that. As you can see from the roof, if you have 85,000 square meters of flat roof, you need to consider solar power. And that's what we are doing. So hopefully we will create a lot of our own energy, renewable energy, because there will probably be a lack of it in the future. Everything I told you so far is phase 1 of Site Zero. And this plant will be operational on the second half of 2023. So from there, we will sort out everything I told you. And basically this magnificent creature will be online. Phase 2 then is to actually be able to also build recycling capacity, so we can wash some of the fractions and close the loop, not only in Sweden but in Motala. Thereby be able to provide some of our local plastic producers with recycled material. So this is basically what I wanted to just introduce you with. Today we are speaking about PP film and PP flexible. We will show you the whole value chain, how it's going to be recycled. We will, I think, come back to you with more presentations like this regarding the other types of plastic packaging that will be recycled in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthias, for exciting news and exciting overview of the Site Zero in Motala. It's going to be very interesting to follow you, and I look forward to my visit also there later this week. It's going to be very exciting. Next speakers coming up soon is Mr. Jörg Dregert from Graf Holding and Mr. Dirk Textor from Textor Kunststoff. Graf Holding is a company very much engaged into various systems for water management, whether it's rain or drinking water or many other things. Everything that is in the ground, maybe something above ground as well, by all means. But it means that they produce large articles for those kind of products. And Jörg Dregert has been fascinated about plastics and recycling a long time, so he's very eager to come here and tell what they are doing. Now, Textor Kunststoff and Mr. Dirk Textor, he is a plastic consultant. He's been doing plastic recycling for 25 years. Very experienced two guys on the stage. So I leave a word to you. Dirk and Jörg, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Jörg. As this was mentioned, I'm responsible for the purchase of the plastic material within the Graf Group. I would like to explain to you what company Graf is doing in the respect of secondary use material. And you see here in front of the plant in Herbolzheim, which is the recycling compounding plant in our large group. We would like to explain to you what we are doing in PCR. We started with rigid, and now we are on the phase with the polypropylene film. Polypropylene film, which was thrown away, and we take the polypropylene film and made out of a 2D material, a 3D thing. I would like now to start with our presentation in the respect that everything what we are thinking about is sustainability. Sustainability, if you think about the material, if you think about our production, if you think about our products. Our products are very often related to water. Water, which is like plastic nowadays, a very short resource. Here you see the plant in Tening, which is a very large site. We are starting here in the year 2006. You probably should understand Graf is a family name, which does mean it's a family-owned company in the second generation. Mr. Graf Senior started with things like products which are related in the wine industry. We're living in a wine area where it was very warm, and you started with buds for collecting wine things, etc. This plant is quite large. It has roughly 350 employees. In this plant, we are doing the process injection molding and blow molding. Now I pass to the next plant, which is the plant in the French area where we started producing plastic things. Plastic things which are produced via the process rotational molding and injection molding. It's not that large if you see the number of employees, but it's still compared to others a very large site. The third plant or site which are presenting to you is the current one, which is now currently starting. There we are producing via the process blow molding and rotational molding. And you see those tanks, which are very large here. They are like a submarine. The volume is can be 120,000 liters, and the weight of those products is more than 4 tons. In other words, those products are the largest you can currently transport on our streets. And in other words, the machinery behind is very often the largest equipment in the world. What you have seen and with those different sites and different kinds of transforming in plastic, we are transforming here roughly 70% of our total need in secondary used material. We start with the yellow bag in Germany. To be a little bit in a picture, you have a yogurt cup, and with this yogurt cup you scale up to a butt, for example, and this was the starting point with secondary used material. We thought all the time, what can we do better in the future? And we created in Herbolzheim, which is in the next picture, a large recycling plant where we do a lot of compounding. We have there a very large lab inside where we can test all the things which are necessary to understand in the kind of question, how long should the plastic lifetime be? Because we are selling products which are digged into the ground where the lifetime is maybe 50 years. And think about, if you have a packaging thing, you are consuming something, throwing this away. The lifetime is very short, and we take this, for example, the polypropylene film, and producing out of the polypropylene film a kind of compound. That does mean we're filling some things inside and producing out of this our own plastic material for the need for our plants. Yeah, important here is to see that this is the minister in Baden-Württemberg who pressed the starting button for the new plant in Herbolzheim, where I'm located. Yeah, what you see here is what we like. We like to understand what people are throwing away, and you see there's a high hill of something, and we pick the right things out of this hill and understand what's inside and what's the possibility behind for us to create a large volume, a large possibility in the future to get a constant material flow. For example, with the testing of the different samples, we saw that this is polypropylene on the other side, on one side. On the other side, you see this is maybe polyethylene, some crazy things, to understand what kind of package varieties are there. This is important to understand. In the end, we create a very large mixture. If you see the polypropylene film, and we are now on the phase where we can commercialize one or the other thing. Yeah, why is company Graf that successful? Because we're doing recycling for more than 40 years. This is the second generation of the family-owned company where recycling is in its DNA. We have the equipment, we have the lab, we have the experience, we have the support from the state, which is very important. The plant in Herbolzheim has received a large amount of money from the state to be able to start, because we take a high risk to start with the equipment. We are still in the process of finding out what is the possible plastic material for the future, for our future need. The polypropylene film is for us the most important source nowadays. We see there great potential, and my colleague Dirk will later on explain what we are doing with the polypropylene and why it's interesting for us. If you see such kind of pictures, they are a little bit maybe difficult to understand. But you see in the beginning that there's the yellow bag, post-consumer waste. And today we have roughly 70% of our need is covered with recycling material out of the yellow bag. And you see the energy costs, of course, and CO2 footprint is very important for us. In other words, there are many, many cycles where we are trying to close this and to get our own material stream in our plants. Very important for you is to understand that we are only in need of polypropylene, or we are using polypropylene and HDPE. Those are materials which are very uncritical and very common in using those products for the packaging industry. With this, you should understand that we try to close the loop with the recycling material possibilities we do have. The next important understanding is that there's not only a circle concerning recycling material in the plastic aspect. The next important thing is to understand that we are very related to water, and recycling of water is nowadays the minimum the same importance like doing the secondary use to recycling way. At the end, both things together. This is difficult to read. Difficult to read for me itself. We have two things which are very important for company Graf. Oops. One side is the recycling of the water. The other side is the recycling of the material. And both are circles which should stood for the symbol here. As you look into deeper, you see there you have groundwater, you have stormwater management. There are so many things which are connected. And at the end, you see that we are a company which is always thinking about closing circle things. To give you a nice picture where we are, if you see the logistic part in this situation, this is for a simple for the understanding how we are thinking and be competitive. This is a large tank. It can have a volume of 6,500 liters. The weight is more than 250 kilograms. This will be produced on a very large injection molding machine, and it's stackable. On one place, we have 8 tanks. We can put this in a container, not only in a truck, and we are selling this worldwide, for example, to Australia or to Asia. And our approach is to be competitive against the Chinese people. We've seen that the secondary used market is difficult. It's difficult in the respect that the market is not offering what we are expecting. And that's why we said we should purchase shares of a recycling company, which is company Wilken, where we together built a larger site where we just start with a new hall, where we install the PP washing line, which will start next year here with the Swedish region. Yeah, coming now to Dirk, he explains us the way how we handle polypropylene film to plastic parts.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jörg. If you see, why do we handle with polypropylene film? Where's our motivation? And our motivation is, of course, we need a high availability of PP recyclates. And if you see the worldwide trend in packaging is less rigid and more flexible. It's a worldwide trend, and you can see it if you have a look on the sorting plants in Germany, for example. You find always more and more flexibles. If you see the amount of PP rigid in Germany, it's a bit a different collection, like in the Swedish collection system. We collect metals and beverage cartons and plastics. You find approximately 6% of the not clean bales as an amount of input polypropylene rigid. And the flexibles today is approximately 5%. And the flexibles are increasing and the rigids are decreasing. And then you can see and imagine that the PP film is more important for us in future. And you find today, of course, because of the exploding prices for virgin material and the not availability of virgin material, a very high demand for polypropylene rigid recyclates, because polypropylene rigid is easy to recycle. There are a lot of applications where it's possible to use PP rigids recycles. And of course, the PP rigid recycling is an established recycling process. And if you need our daily need in future will be up to 220 tons per day. It's of course a lot of material, and then you have to think about where can we get our recycled material. And that's the reason why we look on PP film, and in my opinion, and it's your opinion too, it's a very fruitful discussions with the colleagues of Swedish sorting plant Site Zero. And what have we done? The first step, you see the mixed plastics before sorting here, and after the sorting you get a polypropylene film monomaterial. Of course, monomaterial does not mean 100% polypropylene. You have a bit of impurities, a bit of non-wanted plastics, of course, a bit humidity, and then you have to look how to handle with this kind of material. The second step is grinding and washing the material, and the last step is the agglomeration process. And we have a polypropylene film agglomerate, which we are using in the next step for compounding. One of the very big issues, not only for PP film, but for LDPE film and HDPE film too, is using of NC, nitrocellulose-based colors and additives. I do not know anything about the colors or the printing colors for PE film or PP film. I just learned it from Ansgar Schoner from company Mark. You will hear her later. And as I heard nitrocellulose-based colors, I think it's a nightmare for recycling. And this is a very important thing. Even light colors become dark colors while regranulate this kind of color. And it's a typical burnt smell of this recycled material after the regranulation process. And that's a small notice for all flexible packaging. Please do not use, if possible, NC-based colors. And it is possible to avoid NC-based colors. After the agglomeration, we made a simple regranulate from the PP film just to look what mechanical properties will we find. And you see a lot of tests and measuring and a lot of compounding tests. And we find, okay, it is possible to use a PP film as a substitute for PP rigid recycled material. It was a very big step for us that we can find that it is possible. You see here the biggest injection molding machine in the world. It's a very, very big machine. Here you see the man who is the operator. Very big machine, and I show this kind of machine to show that it's not downcycling. It's a very high level educated process to produce some things like we produce. And it's possible to use PP film as a substitute for PCR, PP rigid material, so-called the metamorphosis from flexible to rigid products. You have an overview, a lot of packaging. It was a very high risk for my personal body weight to empty all this kind of products. And you can see a lot of NIR tests we made, and it's very small, the numbers, of course, but it's, you will find that it's not possible to sort out all the films with NIR because of the colors, for example. And we do now new investment to implement higher sophisticated extruder with a better potential for degazing. It's a very important thing to understand that you have to degaze a lot if NC-based colors in your extrusion process. And that's one of our new products. Here in the middle you see a foamed polypropylene recyclate made out of polypropylene film laminated with polypropylene virgin film and glass fiber with a lot of very high sophisticated abilities. And here you can see some examples for scaffolding or for flooring for boards or whatever. And that's what we do in the next years to implement this kind of products made out of polypropylene film. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Great. It's always nice to listen to people who have a lot of experience. These two guys have been fiddling around with this recycling of polypropylene for quite a while, and it was really good to see that they can transform something we have considered for a long time to be a problematic type of waste into something which is positive. The next speaker, and the last before we have a question and answer session, is Peter Niedersus. He is application marketing manager from Borealis. He's been working his whole life in the area of PP and film. I know him from the past, and I can assure you he is also going to fill you with new competence and knowledge in his good upcoming presentation. Peter, floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Ole Jan, for the nice introduction. Yeah, indeed, I would like to tell you about what we have doing, or what we have been doing at Borealis, and what are we continuously doing at Borealis to make PP flexible packaging circular, so to make it really to close the loop. First, what I would like to do is start with spending some words on Borealis. So, who are we? So for those who do not know us, we are a producer of polyolefins, so producing polyethylene, polypropylene. We are a global company having our head office in Vienna, production assets we do have across Europe, so in the northern part of Europe, but also in Benelux area, Germany and Austria. And we also have joint ventures in Abu Dhabi and in the US. Maybe important to know, next to producing virgin polyolefins, we are also operating 2 recycling plants. So we have one recycling plant in Germany and another one in Austria. Our main shareholder today is OMV. So OMV is the Austrian gas and oil company. So that's all about Borealis. So to probably start also going into the topic, you already heard it in the video, so plastic is really part of our daily life and also helps to make our everyday life easier. And this is showing by the graph also here. So we find many different types of plastics used in many different industries. What is, of course, remarkable and one can easily see is that in the packaging industry, there is a lot of polyethylene and also polypropylene used. So it's packaging, so rigid and flexible packaging. If we zoom actually into polypropylene, and what makes it different to other polyolefins, then we can see that it's sizable in the packaging, but it is also used in other industries. And when you then look also on specific on PP packaging, there's also quite some amount of PP flex packaging that is used every year for packing goods. It's roughly 2 million tons that we use every year. And so for us, the conclusion is that, well, the amount of PP flexible waste is actually, it's sizable. And it's also that the addressable applications and markets are quite different and sizable. So there is also a quite interesting market for recycled polypropylene film. So why is actually polypropylene used in packaging? What makes it so useful? So polypropylene is an extremely versatile material. So we can see it when we look on the amount of conversion technologies which can be used for processing polypropylene. It's so-called roll stack technologies. I'm not going too much into the detail, but it's a technology that allows you to process, for instance, very thick-walled sheets and films. And on the other side, you also have other process technology that we call BOPP, so an orientation process, where you can make very thin-gauged films, so down to 15 or 20 microns. So this is really quite a variety of films that you can produce from polypropylene. And that is possible because you can easily tailor-made the viscosity of PP. So, and finally also the mechanical performance and also thermal performance of a polypropylene film is extremely versatile. So you have a very nice mechanical performance, so from soft to very high stiff, but also from low melting to very temperature resistant. And that means that with polypropylene you can actually meet a lot of requirements of the flexible packaging industry. So if we now look on summary, so what are the benefits the packaging industry is enjoying from polyprop? It's a very efficient material. So because of this very balanced mechanical performance, but also because of the very low density, so light weighting is possible. And it also gives or ensures a very high efficiency in other conversion processes. So in a printing process, in a packaging process, which of course is also very important for anybody who is packing material with film. And polyprop also contributes to the food safety. So it's really efficiently protecting any packed food, and also supporting or guaranteeing a certain shelf life. So all in all, that there are quite many advantages of using polypropylene in flexible packaging, meaning it's very difficult. It would be very difficult to replace such an efficient material with anything else. So, of course, I was now telling about the benefits that we have with polypropylene in flexible packaging, but we also have an issue today still, and this is when we look on okay, how much is actually recycled. And I mean, in general, there is an issue when we look on the recycling rate of plastic packaging. We do have the recycling quota, the target that by 2025, for instance, across all plastic packaging, we want to have 50% already recycled, and in 2030 even 55%. Unfortunately, we are still far away from that. And it is even more a problem for flex packaging, but also for PP flex packaging. The reason is that it depends, of course, on the geographic region, but in some areas it's either not collected, or it goes to even landfill or incineration. So it's not ending up at the recycler. And there is also another problem. It is so that why we are away or far away from the recycling target, and this is that also the calculation point has changed. So we really now look into how much is now really going to be recycled, is ending in the extruder and is not parked somewhere in the yard of somebody. So all that gives then actually a very small figure or a recycling rate for flex and for PP flex packaging. And there is a clear way forward, so that's the positive, that we know what the way forward is. It is mentioned on the slide, so we have to start to collect at scale across the different regions and make it available for recycling, PP flex packaging. We also need to sort it into defined as possible material streams to make also the recycling more efficient. But on the other side, we also need to recycle it at state-of-the-art recycling technology. And finally, also important, once we have a recycled PP, we also need to make sure that we develop applications where we then can use the material, the recycled material. So I want to explain you why we believe that this is the right way forward. We have been making a test at Borealis where we looked on what happens if we recycle today flexible packaging, respectively PP flex packaging. You can find it, depending on the region, of course, in some mixed fractions. So mixed with other polyolefins and other flexible packaging. If you put this into a standard or conventional recycling process, so with not too much effort in sorting, purifying and cold washing, then the result, respectively the quality, is quite limited. So it's relatively poor quality, and such kind of material can be used only in some lower end applications. So it's actually narrowing down the use of this recycled material. And that does not help us to increase recycling rate, which at the end we also want. So the opportunity is now that shown on that slide. So we have in a collaboration with the Swedish recycling, plastic recycling and Motala, we have been processing such a pre-sorted PP flex fraction. And we put this fraction into a advanced recycling process that we call Borcycle M. So Borcycle M is a brand name under which we, let's say, have our own developed recycling technology involving so multi-stage sorting, but also advanced washing, so hot water washing. And we could already see when we fed in the feedstock and then looked on the flakes that came out of the washing process, that this was really a very, pure and also nice looking flakes. Processing this then further, so extruding it, making pellets out of it, and then also producing film has shown us that this is really a step change in quality improvement. So combining recycling technology and the pre-sorted feedstock has significantly improved the output quality. And that, of course, gives then us the possibility to target also other applications. And so we are also looking very much into flexible applications. So there are non-food flex applications, and some are listed on the slide. So it's label film, but it's also furniture decoration film, stationery film. So this type of food packaging that can be addressed with such a quality. And of course that means that also then the market gets bigger and the demand will be bigger, and that helps us to improve here the recycling rate for PP Flex packaging. So in order to close the loop for plastics, so at Borealis, we made a kind of holistic view on the entire value chain, and we also have then defined a way how we believe we can make PP Flex packaging and in general the packaging industry more circular, always having in mind to really minimize the emissions to the environment. So this is our main idea, and this is shown here on that graph. From our perspective, of course, we say the first step is that we need to make sure that all the material we put into the market and is then converted into packaging is designed in a way that it can be collected and recycled. Oh, thank you. So, so starting with design for recycling, and there will be a presentation afterwards on design for recycling. But this is one of the key elements that we have identified, and where we also work a lot with value chain partners to bring recyclable PP Flex packaging to the market, so that it's either reusable or in best case, it can be reused and afterwards recycled. But definitely it should be at least very good recyclable. We also then collaborate with a waste management company like shown before, which is also of course very important to make sure that we do have the waste streams or the material streams established and also available, because availability of course is also a key for the packaging industry. And then of course we are also engaged in recycling, and what I want to mention here is that we see here a hierarchy, a recycling hierarchy. So we see mechanical recycling as the preferred recycling technology. The reason is it's much more eco-friendly because the energy usage is lower. But we know that there are some types of packaging or a rest of packaging will probably not be feasibly recycled by a mechanical recycling process. So that's why there should be also a possibility to do chemical recycling. And those recycling streams are building then partly our new feedstock. We also understand that in any kind of recycling process there are losses, so we need to feed in some fresh material, and we already have established a way to bring in fresh feedstock from renewable sources, because our ambition is also to really reduce and finally then step out from any fossil-based feedstock. So these renewable sources are also from a waste stream. And there's also a nice opportunity in future that partly a feedstock can also come from direct carbon capturing. So there's also a very exciting opportunity for the future, for sure, probably only in 8 to 10 years technically then available. But I think this is a way forward that makes a lot of sense in our view. So that was it from my side, and I want to thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Peter, for this interesting presentation. And I think we have, at least I have realized, hopefully you have also realized, that the focus on circularity is not something some few people talk about these days. It's really something which is in the depth of the visions and strategies of big corporates, whether they are in the plastics processing business or whether they are in the producing business, and also, of course, in the society itself, represented by Matthias and the Site Zero done and created now in the Swedish market. So now we are going over to the question and answer sessions, and then we are looking for questions, of course, from you here physically in the audience, and also from the web, and we have some also hidden up the sleeve ourselves. So let's start with questions from the floor. And we have a microphone that is available to you all. Just volunteer if there is any, and if there is none for the moment, we will start with questions from maybe from Richard from the web, if you have any.
Yes, we have received several questions from the web, so we can continue here if it's not anything from the audience. So the first one is probably directed to you, Matthias. It is for us as brand owners, can we claim now to Swedish consumers that monomaterial containing PP films are recyclable?
That's the intention, but not at the moment. We have to build Site Zero first. Hopefully it will be finished during 2023. So for certain, from the 1st of January 2024, you will be able to do that. Hopefully before that. But Site Zero is a huge project where we actually have a sorting plant, and we will build another one and a lot of other stuffs, and they need to be integrated. So it's hard for me to promise anything before the 1st of January 2024. But you can already communicate that it will be recyclable, and that's very important as well.
And when the PP film recycling turns into being recyclable, will we also change the modulating fees?
Definitely, of course, yes.
Thank you. The next one, I think that maybe several can answer. It is in regarding mixed polyolefin films. So if you use both LDP and PP within the same structure, is that going to be recyclable, and how?
Maybe I can share my or our experience. Well, it is, first of all, it's difficult if we have a mix of PE and PP, the sorting. So it would either go to PE or to PP, and in both streams it's actually wrong. So, and that's why our way forward is to really design polyprop according to design guidelines. So we will hear later on design guidelines, I think, that the amount of one material, either PE or PP, is in the range of 90-95%, because then it's also really easy to sort it. And if it's properly then sorted, then it's also going in the right stream, and we do not have then here cross-contamination, because there is, of course, also a kind of deterioration from one polymer, so which is the contaminant. So PE is contaminating and deteriorating PP properties, and also vice versa. So, so that's why, monomaterial is it's the headline.
Yeah, I think that Matthias maybe want to continue on that answer.
Yes, I think it was a very good answer, but this is the whole point of circularity, that to maintain the material in its basic condition, so to speak. So PP should be sorted and recycled as PP, and the PE as PE. And if you can avoid mixing or blending those, it's good, because then you can keep this circularity. So probably it's allowed today to make this kind of downgrading, and it's possible to make low quality or lower quality products out of it. But I think the legislation on a EU level will change, so you cannot in the future. And that's important as well.
Thank you. The next question, I think I can direct it to Graf. It is in regards to metallized films, which is common in the PP packaging. Can you treat metallized film when you have a very, very thin layer of aluminum on the film?
Of course, this is an issue. You can imagine that this very thin aluminium skin is not plastics. This is an important point to understand. It's disturbing the process as it is not polypropylene plastics. We try to filter out this neither by a sorting system in front of our washing lines, or we try to get out of this steam in the compounding process where the material is melted and we have a sieve inside, and hopefully you are getting out some contamination. But with aluminium, as this is a very small part, very difficult to find out. Yeah, it's disturbing. We can live with this, but it would improve the whole process if we can get rid of this or find another solution on this. In contrary, maybe Dirk would like to say what our biggest issue with aluminium is.
There is no impact in mechanical properties with a thin aluminium film. It's an impact in the filtration process, in the regeneration. And if you know this impact, of course, you can find a solution to handle with this impact. Well, no impact on mechanical properties.
Okay, thank you. The next question is regarding, you mentioned nitrocellulosic inks. In the packaging industry, there is also getting more common to use paper fibers within plastics, or replacing some plastics with composite products based on paper together with plastics. But if we start with those who blend in paper fibers, do you have any experience from Borealis or from Graf if these materials can be recycled or not?
So the first sorting step is consumer, of course, and he decided it's thrown in the blue bucket or in the yellow bucket. If it's thrown in the yellow bucket, it goes to a sorting plant similar to your sorting plant, and then it's a so-called PPK fraction. Everything on at paper and plastics and yogurt and whatever, and no one wants to recycle this kind of material.
Same experience we have. So that's why it's very recommended to really avoid any paper plastic combination. Even if it's paper labels on a plastic packaging, that should be avoided by all means. So it's in a washing process, it can really create a number of problems. Then in extrusions or anything that takes up a lot of water, like a paper fiber, this is it has to be avoided. Mm-hmm.
The next question is also in regards to laminated structures, but in this case, other types of plastic laminates like PA, PE, PET, PE and such. Do we see that these laminates will also be recyclable in near future, and how? Maybe to Matthias?
Yes, what we are aiming for chemical recycling is those remaining laminates containing of polyolefins, PE, PP mix. Regarding the other ones you mentioned, we are following closely. There are other types of chemical recycling projects that we are participating in, but we haven't reached that far, and they haven't reached that far. So at the moment, we cannot see a good solution for those kind of harder mixtures.
I have several more questions. Should I go on, Olian?
You can. If there is anybody here in the audience who have now some reactions, yes, there is a man on the second row. That's good. We get some live in the...
Hello. First of all, the mono PP you said was 100% recycled. Does it mean that if you have different PP, it could BOPP, or you can have CPP, or you can have that's the first one. Will that be 100% recyclable?
No, there's no difference in this kind of materials. Yeah, of course, you're right. You have different kind of polypropylene and different kind of behavior on that. But you have to see, this is a mixing process we are doing in our plant in Herbolzheim. This is really huge. And with having different kind of polypropylene variants and the mixing, and then you have a stable mixture. And with this result, we are doing the compounding process by adding maybe something which improves the impact. Like you mentioned, copolymer, for example. There are so many possibilities in compounding with polypropylene that this is currently solved. Yeah?
Okay, so it's a question for Matthias. Will that be? It's 100% recyclable then. It doesn't matter if they are. BOPP or CPP. It doesn't have to be PP only.
Oh,
yeah.
correct.
What about lamination, OPP and OPP? Will that also be 100% recyclable? Because they can deal with that.
Right.
But what is the difference if you have OPP and PE? Because it's also polyolefin.
This is only a different kind of handling polypropylene. Yeah? At the end, you have a polypropylene itself. Of course, it had maybe different kind of behaviors if you see the structure, but in the end, it is a polypropylene. Yeah? Each of the products or variants you mentioned do have the word inside polypropylene, and maybe this is the thing you can concentrate on. Around this, of course, as I mentioned, we see difference. But the mixture in itself is a new combination where we create a stable base. Maybe it's interesting for you to understand that the silo battery you saw in the plant in Herbolzheim has a capacity of 1,000 tons, yeah? And it's a mixing process. And even if you have maybe some time more from this or that, at the end you mix it and you verify what you are having. Yeah? This is the biggest advantage if you have increased a certain volume. Otherwise, you're right, if you have only one part here and there, this can be an issue with the next combination.
Okay, just the last question for the time being. The approved 100% recycle, is it the monoter? Is it still with the print or should it be unprinted? To have, let's say, a lower fee and... To Matthias.
I think Richard is the right person to answer that question.
Thank you for that one. That's something that we haven't taken the final decision on, but for sure,
the company there, they can deal with that, and it doesn't matter because everything should be dark gray, whatever. So. But it's very important for the, let's say, the food industry because we cannot sell without any, let's say, information of what kind of ingredients, etc.
Yeah, maybe this is a very easy answer. In our point of view, it will be black because it's a burning process, an oxidation process, and you may have seen a lot of products of ours are black. But if you want to offer this quality to competitors of us, you have to think about in getting rid of nitro NC-based printing because with this you have an issue. It will be black. It's a burning process because this is not stable in the compounding lines. If you achieve 140 degrees roughly, it starts burning, oxidation process, and oxidation does mean it will be black at the end. It's not a problem for us, but it's a problem for the market if you continue like this.
Yeah, and in the processes that Borealis is developing, then you would prefer the films to be unprinted because you want to go from film to film application, and in that case, it's not possible to have too much inks on the films, at least if it's not stable like with the NC-based inks.
Yeah. So indeed, of course, that's the ideal world. But we know it's, as you rightly said, you can't sell your products in a totally unprinted film. So there will be parts on the packaging that have to carry a print. But
Is there any recommendation what kind of ink is preferable?
Yes. So there are, and it was mentioned in the presentation, there are recommendations what type of printing inks can be used. Of course, it depends on the application, what type of printing ink that you need. But I would say in simple, so the more contamination and the more printing ink you have on your packaging, the more you reduce the reuse. Because you could take a almost transparent recycled material and color it in black afterwards. But a black recycled material, you cannot make it transparent. That's the issue. But I'm also quite convinced in future we will see an array of different RPP materials from almost transparent to more colored. And I think this is all about then creating the right fractions. And we will then get different qualities, and there will be applications for the different qualities. I'm pretty convinced.
Thank you.
And I think it's a very good question, because even though we are trying to be able to sort out and recycle basically all types of plastic packaging that are used today, we still need to consider the design aspects, and we need to think about printing and labels, etc., etc. So we cannot lose attention on those things. It matters, and it will continue to matter. And I think what we all said, every type of things that make recycling more difficult is some kind of downgrading, which we, in the best of worlds, would try to avoid. But we totally understand that you have a responsibility. You have to mark your packaging. You are trying to sell a product, etc. So this is always something we have to discuss together.
Is there one question more here? No, I'm not sure. I was thinking, Peter, I think you have at least been quite much involved in this Saflex organization, or as a company. Mm-hmm. And they have been working very hard to find out how you can really recycle both polypropylene film and polyethylene film.
Correct.
Do they have some success stories in that project for polypropylene film, and how you can better work with PP film recycling?
Yes, so indeed there was a project already under the umbrella of Saflex, showing that by having a well pre-sorted fraction of PP Flex packaging and applying then an advanced recycling process, that it could be reused in a flex packaging, in a pouch application even, so including lamination. And also the content of RPP that was used was somewhere in the range of 30%, so high recyclate content, and also the process, the film processing technology applied was a BUPP process, which is one of the most complex and sensitive processes. So that's definitely something that I call a success story.
Mm. So did Saflex create some kind of special recycling process or to achieve this?
Well, they called this QRP, this process, I would say it was probably not specifically from Saflex developed, but I think they described it very well about the technology and actually the combination of technologies that is used in this QRP process.
Mm. Mm. There was I don't know who mentioned that, but it was mentioned that it was 2 million tons, I think, of flexible. Is that, I guess, in Europe?
It's Europe, yes. Yeah.
How much of that is actually food packaging, and which will restrict the use of recyclates?
So our I would say estimation, because it's quite difficult to get really detailed numbers, but our estimation is that roughly 60% goes into food packaging of PP Flex. But of course, there are also other non-food applications or secondary packaging applications, which is then the other 40% more or less. So it's really just a rough estimation. But all in all, it's still a quite sizable market, I would say, that can work with recycled PP from a mechanical recycling process.
Matthias, you, if I understand correctly, you have now the first line up and running, which is a sorting line.
Yes.
And the second line is going to be installed soon.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
And then this sorting is done into, you described 10 different fractions. And
actually 12.
Oh, 12.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 12. I went out of counting. So it means that the product you have is then going to be transformed and sold and transformed by recyclers for the moment.
Yes, in the first phase, we will create the conditions to double the capacity from 100 to 200,000 tons, and going from 4 types of sorting today to 12. We will need partners to be able to recycle them in the next stage. But as I mentioned during the presentation, in phase 2, we also want to build our own recycling capacity for some of those fractions.
Yeah. Has it been, I'm just thinking about the process of establishing these partnerships, because if I understand correctly from the market, to obtain or to get hold of material for recycling is actually a challenge in the marketplace. How was the process in your case to offer it to the market? Was it easy going, everybody wanted it, or was it challenging?
No, I was stupid enough, because I'm not from the plastic industry. So everybody told me there's 4 types of plastic that you can sort out and recycle, and that's it. And I was a little bit curious about that. So we started to sort out new fractions that, like PS or EPS or PP film. And we started to send those to different kinds of recyclers, and they got feedback to us and said, can you do a little bit like this instead? And we adjusted the plant, and then we realized that there was also a win-win situation regarding the economy, and all of a sudden we were standing there with 12 fractions instead.
Which you found the market for. That's
Yes.
great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. What is your philosophy on sorting colors? Transparent from colored, for example.
Right. We can actually do that today at the plant, but the demand hasn't been big enough in order for us to actually do that. I think we will focus more on that when we eventually decide on the next phase, when we make a recycling plant and have a color sorting in that stage, rather than at the current sorting plant.
Good.
I have received a lot of questions
Yeah.
from the digital audience. One is in regards to the recycling point and how it is being measured. We saw quickly in the Borealis presentation that the measuring point is changing. And from the Swedish perspective, we have already started to report in a new measuring point. Can you, Matthias, describe a little bit about the process to calculate in this new point? How did we do?
We did fine. It's quite complicated, because we need to ask the recyclers, what is your yield? How much of our material is actually being recycled, and how much is going to incineration, or how much losses do you have? So we are dependent on the whole value chain. Therefore, I think it's good to have a close cooperation, and that you really know the whole value chain, and choose your partners wisely. We did this for the first time last year. We found a process And we were able to actually present this process for the EU Commission, and they were very happy about that. So maybe that will become some kind of model for other recyclers who are actually struggling a little bit today, I know. So that's very nice. Traceability is a key, and it's extremely important to our customers.
Thank you. Recycling, from a climate perspective, it will or is very important to reduce the climate impact from plastics, and by recycling we think that we do this. There have come some, or there are some questions in the chat in regards to the transports that are included in the recycling value stream. Do we know anything about the impact from transport on the climate impact from recycling? Is it still better to recycle? Can anyone comment on that?
Yes.
Everyone wants to comment. Perfect.
Everybody, yes. It's, now we have some experience from the recycling operations that we have in Germany and in Austria. We made some calculations how much is the CO2 emission of recycled material. Of course, it was polyethylene, but I think we are in the same of magnitude also with PP Flex recycling. And mechanically recycled material is roughly reducing the CO2 footprint over a virgin product by 50%. So it's quite a significant amount. And of course, it is already including from where do you get the feedstock. So of course, you have to transport it depending where your supplier is.
Yeah.
So transport only has a small backpack of CO2 emissions. Of course, if you can avoid this, you should do this, but it's only a small backpack of CO2 emissions.
Thank you. There are some comments on black plastics. What do you think in the future? Will black plastics be recyclable, or are there still limitations on black?
Yeah, if you see black, you do not have any NIR system which is able to detect this. The technology is existing. This is, you name it, MRR system, which is a beam like this, very hot, where you can detect the material. Yeah, you get a beam back, and this is currently used in our plant in Herbolzheim for rigid plastics, and that's why we are a little bit comfortable if we use polypropylene film, and it will be black. It will be a 3D part, a bucket or a tank, and after we receive this tank back, maybe after 50 years, we can detect this with our system, because we are collecting in our region those products, yeah? With film, etc. It is very difficult. I assume from the technical point of view, this is really challenging. Yeah?
In my opinion, the first question has to be, why do we need black packaging? Where's the reason to use black packaging? I do not know any kind of material who needs a black packaging. I do not know. It's only a marketing thing, and it's easy to avoid black packaging.
We are happy that we are not having any packaging producer on the stage right now, because they would maybe comment on that. But why do you think that LDP is a very more common material in flexible packaging compared to PP material? Anyone that
more common?
Is this really the case? Of course, we would claim no. In contrary, hopefully polypropylene will be the material for the future if you see PP film, because we have a solution, and the products we are producing out of it are long-term living products. Besides this, this is the interesting understanding. How long is the lifetime of a polypropylene film? And you have to calculate this, and you have to find a module on this. Why a tank or a sheet has a lifetime of 50 years, and that's our expertise. We know how to handle this.
the point of view as a recycler, you always has to look on the market who wants to buy my recyclates. Yeah. If you are making LDPE recyclates, the main application for LDPE, of course, is film. And you always have to find an application, a film application for your recyclate. That's the main issue in my opinion, for LDPE recyclates, for post-consumer LDPE recyclates.
Good. That was the last word at this question and answer round. We have today, so far, had 3 speakers. We will enjoy now some coffee, and I hope everybody in the audience and also at home will have some coffee and relaxing. In 30 minutes, 3 o'clock sharp, 15:00, we are back. Look forward to see you all online, live, whatever. It will be exciting. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the seminar. I hope you had a good coffee. I hope you had a good time to relax, and maybe you are reflecting on what we have heard before the break. I apologize that I didn't introduce the last man on the right side here before the discussion and the panel discussion. That was Rickard Jansson. He is working for the Swedish Plastic Recycling Company. And he will also join us for the next panel. And he has been a very important part, maybe one of the most important parts of creating this program. But anyway, now we are starting off with part 2. And the first speaker, he will be with us via web link. It will be Fabrizio De Gregorio. He is the technical manager in Plastic Recyclers Europe for the Recyclas system. We will see what it is. Many of you probably know it. Fabrizio has a very long, deep background in science and technology. Really a good scientist. He has been also teaching at different universities, and he's Italian, and he's today also speaking from Italy. But as I said, he's today here as a technical director of Recyclas, and we look forward, Fabrizio, to hear you speaking about it. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your kind introduction. I apologize for not being with all of you in Stockholm, but yes, I hope we can manage quite well remotely. Today, I have the pleasure to talk about how to make polypropylene flexibles circular with Recyclas. And first of all, let me introduce you what is Recyclas and how Recyclas does it works. Yes, first of all, Recyclas is an initiative we launched 3 years and a half ago at Plastic Recyclers Europe. That is the representative European Association of Plastic Recyclers, counting for more than 160 plastic recyclers, covering more than 80% of the plastic recycling capacity across Europe. And we launched this initiative to close the gap between the plastic recyclers and all the rest of the value chain. Today, Recyclas is indeed quite well known, is a value chain initiative supported by the European plastic recyclers with roughly 70 members, counting on brand owners, raw material producers, converters, and retailers, working all together to making plastic truly circular. The focus of Recyclass is to approach recyclability and recycled content for plastic packaging with a technical and scientific approach. Indeed, this is the reason why the platform, the initiative, is structured in technical committees, where each technical committee is in charge of developing standard testing protocols and update fact-based design for recycling guidelines. With the scientific approach I already mentioned, but also with a pan-European approach to solve the discrepancies we are still observing in the different European countries in terms of the design for recycling guidelines. It's an inclusive initiative where whatever company would like to join is full welcome. And the overall goal is to really make plastic truly circular. Indeed, the mission and vision of the initiative is to ensure that all products, in particular all the plastic packaging in a very short period of time, will get placed on the European market as recyclable material. And we would like to also promote the transparent uptake of recycled plastics in new plastic products, fully in line with the circular economy for plastics. That said, let's dive now in the circularity journey. This is a really important one because it's quite challenging sometimes for companies engaged in this design for recycling guidelines and circularity for plastics to understand where we are, what is expected from our industry at the long term, at the medium term, and the small term. So the circularity journey has already started when in 2018 we had from the legislator, from the European Commission, the Circular Economy Directive. And we have several targets in front of us. In particular, if you look in the small medium term, 2025 and 2030. Of course, the circularity will never end until at least 2015, where we look to be carbon neutral. But what will happen in the next few years and where we are? Currently, we are exactly at the beginning of 2022, where the revision of the Packaging Waste Directive is ongoing, and the European Commission is looking to publish this revision by July, 22nd of July this year, where the Packaging Waste Directive will report a list of essential requirements for design packaging, not only plastic packaging, but whatever packaging, and to place this packaging on the European market. This is an important step to clarify what is recyclable and what is not recyclable in terms of plastic of design. But looking at the targets we have in front of us in less than 3 years, 2025, as you can see by the slides, we have several commitments to achieve. One already mentioned several times this morning. First of all, as an industry, we need to collect, sort, and recycle 50% of the plastic packaging placed on the European market, with a new calculation point that is making this further challenging. But this is important because to make it happen, we need to ensure that whatever packaging we are placing on the market will get collected by 2025 all across Europe. This is mandatory. And then that all the packaging collected will get sorted in monostream and addressed to recycling. And this is important, for example, for polypropylene flexibles, because to reach the 50%, we need also to count on plastic packaging that today are not still widely collected, sorted, and recycled. And we need to move forward in sorting this PP flexible in sorted stream and recycled back as soon as possible in high-value application. As you can see, there are other goals. Also, the use of recycled content is already mandatory for PET beverage bottles by 2025. But between 2025 and 2030, the Commission is looking to make mandatory the use of recycled plastics in packaging, also polyolefinic packaging. With this in mind, I'd like to clarify why it's important for our industry, for the plastic industry, to harmonize and have a scientific based approach behind the recyclability assessment, as well as the use of recycled plastic in packaging and products. First of all, we need to harmonize and base our design for recycling guidelines on scientific data, because we need to strengthen and give credibility to our claims. We see a lot of claims every day appearing on the web, appearing on the products in the market. But behind these claims, there is often a lack of scientific background. We need a scientific background also because we cannot live with different rules and different design for recycling guidelines in Europe, just because the packaging is placed on the different geographical area. But we need to give credibility to our industry by putting in place a set of design for recycling guidelines based only on scientific-based information that will remain valid for all European countries. This will provide clear direction for design for recyclability policies within the brands. Recyclas is exactly working on these points, giving credibility to the message, and in which way. There are basically three main pillars behind how Recyclas does it work. And first of all, I like to emphasize that the guidelines are probably the most powerful tool used by our packaging designer and scientists today. But to have reliable and fact-based guidelines, we need to have, first of all, standardized and reliable testing protocols in place. And this is exactly what Recyclas developed already 3 years ago, and this yearly revising. We have developed with all our members standard testing protocols able to simulate at lab scale what is happening every single day at industrial recycling processes, as well as these protocols are also capable to simulate the use of recycled plastic in high-value application. Testing protocols can be used and are used by hundreds of companies today that would like to test or demonstrate that the technology behind their packaging are compatible with recycling, and are also used internally by the Recyclas Technical Committee to generate fact-based guidelines, so to generate a set of data that can be used then to update regularly the guidelines. All the guidelines and the protocols by Recyclas are available online. We also, of course, have guidelines for design for recycling guidelines for polypropylene flexible, both transparent and colored polypropylene flexibles. And all this information reported in the guidelines are also transposed into the Recyclas tool, that is a free online tool that everyone can use for self-assessing plastic packaging recyclability. In this case, for Recyclas, recyclability is not binary, so packaging is not recyclable or not recyclable, but there is a grading system from A to F to define the compatibility with recycling, where A means that the packaging is perfectly designed for recycling, meaning that at the end of the day, the quality of the recycled plastic obtained by the packaging will be so high that the recyclate can replace virgin in the same or in a similar application, talking about film-to-film, packaging-to-packaging, up to F, where F means that the packaging needs to be completely revised for designing, because today is not sorted and recycled at all. And there are several issues that should be solved in order to guarantee that the packaging will get recycled. Apart from the Recyclas tool that is used today by more than 7,000 people around the world, we also have developed a recyclability certification scheme that is a third-party certification in order to give more credibility to the claims behind recyclability. But I will go a little bit in detail about the certification later. I mentioned that it's already 3 years that Recyclas is also working on design for recycling guidelines for polypropylene flexible, because we believe that polypropylene flexibles as well as polyethylene flexibles need to get collected everywhere in Europe, and it will be mandatory by 2025, but then also sorted in all the European sorting line as a monostream, where today is not the case, unfortunately, because polypropylene flexible were collected are typically sorted in a stream that is called the mixed polyolefin stream. That is unfortunately a mix of polyethylene and polypropylene multilayer, fully contaminated by other polymers, but of course also contaminated by whatever contaminants is coming with the packaging on the market. So contaminated by coatings, barrier, printings, laminating adhesive, decoration like labels and adhesive for labels, and so on. We strongly believe that plastic packaging and in particular polypropylene flexibles can be sorted in a monostream. And in particular, we can accelerate this transition if we are able as an industry to design these polypropylene flexibles following a fact-based design for recycling guidelines, meaning that we will concentrate economic and technical value in the polypropylene flexible waste, making more attractive the business for the sorters and for recyclers, with the intention to have these polypropylene flexibles recycled in their own recycling lines. Going a little bit in the details about how the guidelines look like for polypropylene flexibles, but I would say in general for whatever plastic packaging we are looking to design. First of all, before to enter in the detail, I would like to give you a message. As an industry, when we think about circularity, our overall goal is to increase the quality of the plastic recyclate on the market in order to ensure that this recyclate can enter once again in our industry, in particular in high-value application, where the Commission is looking now to have a high rate of plastic recyclate, plastic packaging going back in packaging to packaging application. This is important to keep the value, the economic and technical value of the plastic waste as long as possible in our society. How this information is transferred in the Recyclas methodology and in the Recyclas design for recycling guidelines. When we are talking about monomaterial packaging, also when we are talking about monomaterial polypropylene flexible, we are talking about packaging that should be concentrated in the target polymer, meaning that the weight of barriers, coatings, mineral fillers, additives, decoration, as well as printing inks, or whatever other components is present in the packaging matter. And in Recyclas, this is important to define the starting recyclability class of the packaging, where if the packaging has a concentration of polypropylene, talking about polypropylene flexible, higher than 95% by weight, this is the prerequisite to start the recyclability assessment with the class A. If the packaging is lower, concentrated in polypropylene, for example, between 90 and 95% by weight in polypropylene, this is the prerequisite to start the recyclability assessment with the class B. If the concentration is still lower, and this is under investigation because the Commission is looking probably to have just on the European market packaging with a higher than 95% concentration of the target polymer. But in any case, with Recyclas, the recyclability assessment will start with a lower class ranking, meaning that the packaging will be very difficult then to recycle. This is the first, but then the overall goal of the guidelines is to give reliable information to the industry in terms of compatibility with recycling. And first of all, why the Recyclas guidelines are so special? Because first of all, you can see that the guidelines are, in the first line, fully related with the amount of the target polymer in the packaging, but second line, the guidelines are fully related with the testing protocols we have developed to test and verify in a standard way with our partners' labs if the packaging, so if the residual components in the packaging are still compatible with recycling. The guidelines are available online. I would like just to focus on a few design features, talking about flexible. First of all, barriers that are quite important for flexibles. In particular, I would like to point out that EVOH seems to be today still the most promising barrier. We have tested already barriers in polyethylene. We are currently testing EVOH as barrier in polypropylene flexible, and probably we will define a threshold value for the use of EVOH as barrier in polypropylene flexibles. Metallization, as mentioned in the previous section, is still considered compatible with recycling. Recyclas has recently finalized an independent test campaigns on metallization, where metallization means a very limited concentration. I'm talking about hundreds of Armstrong of deposited aluminium on the polypropylene layers. This is not causing any issue with the tensile properties of the new products generated with the recyclate, but is building a little bit of build-up on the filter, so there is sometimes increase of pressure during the recycling operation. And another important I would like to mention, if you look at the bottom line of the guidelines, direct printing. This morning we already talked a bit about transparent versus colored. That are these two different approach we are already following in the Recyclas guidelines. Where I would like just to point out that, of course, the printing and the colors matter. First of all, to get a full sortability of the packaging, so the preference should be always for light colors instead of dark colors, and to limit as much as possible the amount of printing inks. And talking about printing inks, we have an ongoing test campaigns for inks where we have already individuated and confirmed that nitrocellulose binder as well as PVC binders should be avoided because are not thermostable at all. And the overall goal in terms of pigments and binders in particular, talking about inks, should be to prefer polyurethane that are the most thermostable we have today on the market. This is also how the Recyclas recyclability evaluation protocol looks like. We have a protocol fully dedicated for polypropylene films that is based on the best practice we are looking for the industrial recycling process for polypropylene flexibles. The protocol is based on three main steps: pre-treatment, where typically the material under analysis is grinded, washed, processed by density separation, the flotation. And then after drying, the material is blended with what we call a control film, that is a fully recyclable one, and with different concentration of the innovation film, the material is extruded and for a certain period of time, and then the pellets representing the recyclate are characterized and compared one by one, properties by properties, to check if the innovation film will determine any decrease in properties in the recyclate. But the third step, the most important one, targeting the circularity, the recyclates produced by the previous step are diluted by half with virgin and are processed for cast film production. Once again, for 30 minutes minimum time with different concentration of innovation. And then the films are collected, compared with each other for the tensile properties and visual inspection in order to understand if the innovation films technology can determine a negative influence in the tensile properties or in the visual evaluation of the film. We have 2 recognized laboratories, one in Europe and one in US, and we are also looking to have an owner fully recognized for managing our protocol for polypropylene films. I would like also to mention that sorting is also a key step in any recyclability assessment, where Recyclas has developed last year a protocol a standard protocol for testing the sorting behavior, whatever packaging we're talking about, plastic packaging we're talking about, where you can see that polypropylene flexible was already part of this protocol. So whatever design talking about polypropylene flexible can be tested in our partner lines. We have 2. We have Sirpak, powered by Veolia in Germany, and we have the Netherlands Testing Center for Circularity in the Netherlands. Now I would like to spend the last minutes for the third-party certification. Just to mention to you that we have developed 1 year and a half ago with all our members in Recyclas an audit scheme for recyclability and an audit scheme for recycled content. The audit scheme for recyclability is valid for also for polypropylene flexibles, because we have, if you look at the left, a recyclability certification that is called Design for Recycling Assessment that is valid for all European countries, where this certification is for packaging that are not already today widely collected, sorted and recycled. But if there is at least one country in Europe, and this is the case for polypropylene flexible, where the packaging is collected, sorted and recycled, we can certify the packaging for recyclability with a pan-European approach. And we look to have also polypropylene flexibles certified by Recyclas with the recyclability rate assessment that is country-specific, targeting the audit in a specific geographical area. So where Sweden will start to recycle polypropylene flexibles in 2024, probably the recyclability rate will be also capable to capture all the plastic packaging placed on the Sweden market that will get recycled, and will report, of course, also the recyclability rate, so the quantitative amount and valuable material that will get recycled with the packaging. The last is the recycled plastic certification. It's important to keep in mind that circularity starts by designing packaging in order to create value, technical and economic value in the waste, and end by promoting an uptake of recycled plastic to replace virgin in high-value application. Our audit scheme is based on traceability, a chain of custody approach, where first of all the recyclers that are responsible for the generation of the recyclate are audited, and then all the other actors of the value chain are audited as well. The approach is a controlled blending chain of custody approach that is important to focus on the physical presence of the recycled plastics in the plastic products. So this is important to ensure that whatever claim the brands are making on the packaging will be realistic. And it's important to also point out that our Recyclas certification scheme for recycled content was already recognized at European level by ISO 17065 this year, and also was endorsed by the Circular Plastic Alliance to monitor and report the use of the 10 million tons recycled plastic that our industry committed to use back in plastic products by 2025. That's it in a nutshell about Recyclas. This is my summary slide. So whatever you are thinking about recyclability or recycled content of your packaging, but in particular regarding packaging that today are not yet commonly recycled, like polypropylene flexible, Recyclas can be your house. Recyclas can be a tool, a powerful tool you can use to test and claim recyclability and recycled content. So please follow us, use us, and we will try to support your business to make it circular. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Fabrizio. It's very comprehensive, the system you have developed, very interesting. I think it's going to bring value to the recycling and the circular economy a lot in the coming years. And you will be with us in the panel discussion, although you are far away, but you will be with us online, and we will try to direct some questions also to you. But now we go on with the next speaker, which is Ansgar Schonlau. Ansgar is Managing Director of a company, MAG GmbH, and they are producing flexible packaging. And Ansgar has been for a long time involved in flexible packaging and is also devoted to circular economy. So I give you the stage.
Thank you very much for introduction. Yes, here I am, manufacturer of flexible packaging. And I think many people around the world think we are the natural enemy of environment and sustainability, the only reason for marine littering and so on. Luckily, here I'm under experts, so I think we can skip this unpleasant discussion and directly come to the exciting opportunities that plastic packaging has. I'm definitely convinced that we are not the problem, but we are part of the solution for sustainability demands. Yeah, recyclable packaging is flexible packaging is my issue. Before I started, I'm just talking about flexible packaging. I'm not talking about plastic labels, pots, cups, or anything injection molded. These are several aspects with different conditions. I'm just talking about flexibles. One information, one slide about our company. We are a medium-sized one, 80 people with 20 million euro turnover, family-owned. I'm the owner. And also we are medium-sized. Our export ratio is about 70%. We also have customers in Southern America or in Asia. But the main perspective is, of course, Europe. Yeah, if we want to be or contribute something to sustainability, we have to talk about circular packaging goals. And what does it mean for plastic packaging? Of course, we need recyclable plastic packaging. I think no matter if you are a supporter of mechanical recycling or chemical, if you're still of hope that this will work in the nearer future, we can be sure that if you want to be recyclable, it cannot be any kind of mixed material. It must be monomaterial. It also must be polyolefin. You only can discuss about if it's LDPE or if it's polypropylene. If you're talking about the packaging, then you also, and this is quite new for our industry, about secondary markets. So far, we only had the demands of our customers, but now we have to talk about recyclates and usage of recyclates. So it's doubling the demand of what we have to do for the future. What also is a goal that many of the brands come to us and tell, yes, we have made pledges that we will have recycled content in our packaging until 25 or whatever. Also, therefore, we have to give an answer. And we cannot say, don't believe, so leave it. We have to find solutions, and I think we have solutions on that. Why do we do it? It's just to replace fossil-based materials by recyclates in order to reduce the carbon footprint that we have. Everything what we do is under regulatory conditions of the United Nations, about the European Union, or under national regulation. So the plastic strategy, the Green Deal, and also diversified demands or conditions in every country make it very difficult to have an overall solution. Anyway, that's the goal, that we can order or offer everything to the global brands, which are not only working in one country. We have been in a supermarket, no matter where it is. I think the point is always the same. If you find packed food, no matter if it's bread, meat, cheese, noodles, detergents, hygiene products. We see them in the supermarket, and what we also see, what you see on the slide, normally they very often have a mixed pack laminates for packaging. We think it's about 40 to 50% of the market. And if we want to have recyclable material, that means in the first step, we have to replace the mixed materials by monomaterials. As I said in the beginning, it's a field of tension. In former times, when I started my career, my first boss told me, we are blue-collar guys. We do what our brands expect, then we transfer it into packaging, and this is it. Today, we are asked by the same brands, what is your solution, what is your proposal, how can you do anything? And not only this, we also have to think for the recyclers and for the secondary markets. It's much more. And what we have learned intensively, that it makes a lot of sense to think from the end. It's not possible to start with the beginning and say, let's look what comes out. We have found another solution where we say we have to look at the secondary markets, and if they are happy, then we have to find packaging for that. We also found out that it's not only possible to talk about the material, the polypropylene. We also have to think about inks, about adhesives, also labels, zippers, and that we have to find solutions as a general. And we have to do it in high-value markets, as if the recyclate is used. I don't want to stress this slide again because Peter has shown it earlier before. I think it really shows that the two different options, the LDPE and the polypropylene, are used in packaging markets, but that polypropylene has a big advantage that you also can transfer it and transform it to other industries, like injection molding, like automotive industries, also building industries. And this makes or brings much more options than only coming back into the packaging market. So when we started all our recyclability activities, we made a comparison between polypropylene and LDPE and found out that different aspects, we see that sometimes they are similar, but in very important aspects, polypropylene has much better qualities or properties. If you look at the mechanical properties, polyethylene, I worked in the first company where I was in an LDPE extrusion. It's a fantastic material. It was so far a basic material for most of the packaging. But if you want to do it on monomaterial, you see that, for example, mechanical properties, they're not on the same level as we can create it by polypropylene. And one very important point is what we have in discussion here. I also saw it in the questions earlier. The market, we have an estimation. Nobody knows if it's really exactly this one, but we today would say that 80 million tons worldwide of packaging are made out of polypropylene, and a figure of 44 million tons LDPE. This is only one part of the story, because LDPE, as you have seen it on the earlier slide, is very often part of a mixed laminate. So that means they are standing for much more packaging than polypropylene materials. And I think this is the main point at the moment why so many people are talking about LDPE, although we are convinced at this time it does not make sense to insist on using this polymer. But everybody is coming from this. If we are talking to machine suppliers for extrusion processes, they tell us from 10 machines, the extrusion machines that they are selling, 8 of them are for LDPE blowing, and 2 of them are cast extrusion for polypropylene. So it's clear if a whole industry, starting from naphtha production ethan production, everybody is focused on polyethylene. It's very, very difficult for them to switch and think that polypropylene is a better material. And I think this is the main reason why it's so difficult. Also, we now show that we have a solution, a real material streamless polypropylene, that still there are so many talking about LDPE. The big advantage towards secondary markets for polypropylene, this is our opinion, is that we can switch it into rigid applications. We had this morning some questions about inks, and the question, can we deliver in future packaging without printing? Yes, ask yourself how possible this will be, that the brand says we do it transparent. I think it's unrealistic, and we have to find solutions for reality. But we have to find one solution step after the next. It does not make sense. I think in plastic packaging towards recycling, we are just learning from walking on the ground, coming to the upright position. I think the next step is not flying to the moon. I don't think that it's the right time at the moment to talk about food grade recycling. And there it doesn't matter if it's chemical recycling or mechanical. We have to do one step after the other. And the next step, a very valuable step, is exactly the way that the company Graf this morning showed. We have to find other applications where these materials are available and possible to be used without conditions that are unrealistic. So what we did, I said after the look through the supermarket, today we can say that we can cover all demands of the so-called FMCG market for fast-moving consumer goods. No matter if it's a vertical pouch, a horizontal, if it's a tray, if it's a sachet, if it's a stand-up pouch, if it's thermoformed, we can solve it with polypropylene materials. And yes, also one question earlier was, is it a laminate? Yes, it is a laminate. It's mostly a laminate of BOPP and CPP, but this does not matter because it's everything. It's just a mechanical difference between BOPP and CPP. It's not a chemical one. So it can be recycled, it can be used. And I think with this stage and walking through the line down to the products or up to the products of Graf, we see this is a real solution to close the material stream. So I really am fully convinced we are ready with this point. We have talked about inks. What we have found out while talking to the recyclers with our standard nitrocellulose-based inks, we even can make a white, white packaging black if you bring it into recycling. And the point is, what was mentioned earlier quite often, it's due to the properties of NC materials. If you move to other ink systems, like polyurethane, the guy from Recyclas told it before, then you find that these are able to fulfill all the expectations of recycling. But polyurethane inks have one quality, you cannot print them on the front side of the packaging. So you have to do it in an inner layer. We use it to say that we print in the middle between the BOPP and the CPP. And this has also an advantage for the recycling, because if there is nothing on the surface, then you can detect the material, the polypropylene, via NIR detection. You don't need any tracer-based sorting, no holy grail, no anything. You can do it with today's state-of-the-art equipment. And I think this is a very good advantage of it as well. We don't have to get rid of the inks, so no chemical approach to get the inks away. We have to bring our products into applications where everybody is happy with the gray performance of the recyclate. We have installed different applications in the German market for salad, for masks, powder masks, as I said, for milk pots. The Dinkel pancakes here, this was formerly polyester aluminum polyethylene laminate. We can do it today with a triplex polypropylene. So we have solutions on that. Also, Haribo as a synonym for today's polypropylene application. We would say we can improve it, because if you use other ink systems, you even can improve this system, which is good in terms of polypropylene, but which can be perfected in using the right inks. Down on the side, you see the meat packaging. This was a development formerly trays out of different materials, now moved into flexible packaging, into a pouch. We saved 60% of material and have a monomaterial as a packaging. I think this is one of the best solutions that we have found. Also in Scandinavia, we are active. We have a sales agency here who is very good on the run. They have shown different approaches where you always see you can really replace mixed applications. Coming back to the issue of I need recycled content in my packaging. We think let's bring it on another level. Let's bring it on this discussion on the same level as you do it today with eco-energy, where we have also the situation, also on chemical recycling, that not each molecule of what you have in your packaging must be the same. What we are doing actually, we are offering a certificate where we bring together users of PCR, like Company Graf, who have a share of today even 60–70% PCR, together with a food brand. And as we say, it's like in a family. If I'm with my wife, she makes the money, I am good in cooking. It doesn't make sense that I make the money and she starts cooking. Everybody gives his best, and at the end, everybody's happy. So we want to bring those people together and say everybody gives his best, but would mean for a brand who's having a mixed laminate that he is not able to get a certificate from this monopolymer if he is not willing to go into this monomaterial packaging. So we force everybody into the same stream, and at the end of the day, we have fulfilled the expectation that the CO2 demand is decreasing, or the output is decreasing, and the usage of recyclate is growing. We couldn't do it alone. We are a medium-sized small company. We have very good partners. On the left is Tagli, for example. This is a Dubai-based manufacturer of materials. Hoover is an ink supplier. Henkel for the adhesives. So we are just part of a chain, but we learned a lot while talking to those. And as I said, if you really establish partnerships, then you see that it works. One very short word to the point of renewable materials. Yes, we are able to use non-fossil-based materials, but at the moment we do not recommend it because you have a 4 times higher demand of energy for switching bio-based materials into naphtha, bio-naphtha. So we say, yes, it is an option, but as long as we have coal mining and everything, and especially the situation at the moment, it does not make sense to go this way, in our opinion. But if anybody wants it, we can do. What does recyclable material cost? Is a question that we always hear. Frankly, our industry is technology-driven, and that means making a thick film thinner or a big pouch smaller is 35 years of experience. You shouldn't expect miracles in the future. our approach is different, and therefore we come back to the sustainability approach again. We are referring to the SDG of the United Nations and say, it's not mathematics that we are doing here. 1 + 1 in sustainability is not 2. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's less. You have to argue and find solutions, creatives. What we did is we standardized our production, brought it on a base which is very well known from the automotive industries. And as we have done it together with our customers, we found that there is a real exciting opportunity. You see it on the next slide. We have increased our stock turnovers. We have dramatically decreased our quality problems. That means, all in all, it's a much easier work cooperation. And I think our goal is don't talk about the price of the film, talk about the total cost, and therefore we have big advantages in doing so. Doing so means we are climate neutral, meanwhile, after scope 1 and 2. And yes, I would like to ask you to join us on this way with polypropylene. We only can do it as partners. And if you do it together, then I'm pretty convinced now we have the solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ansgar. It is good to get, let's say, the production aspects into this, to see how things are handled in a good way also in that part of the value chain. Very, very interesting. We are moving to the third presentation in this second block, which is also the last presentation before we have another panel discussion. And the lady which will be on stage is Karin Lindqvist. She's from Mölndal, is also of Gothenburg, working in RISE, very knowledgeable in circular economy and plastics. And then she has developed this presentation together with Hanna Unsbo, who is from IVL, Swedish Environmental Research Institute. Hanna will also participate in the debate afterwards, but Karin will present. So I give the word to you, Karin.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I will present our project with the title Increasing the Circularity of High Barrier Flexible Plastic Packaging. And the short name is CircPack. Yes, the background is, as we have talked about today, that we do have multi-layer laminate packaging, and it's very important because they increase the sustainability of the food and is in many cases essential for safe packaging. Now the structure of these packaging, as we have talked about, is several layers, and we can, for example, have polyethylene or polypropylene as an outer and an inner layer, and between them we have the barrier, which is there to protect against gas, liquid, rupture, etc. But the structure of these films actually do complicate the recycling. Many times it's difficult due to the sorting, as the previous speaker mentioned, and also if we do recycle the multi-layer, we will have a very low quality of the recyclate. So when we talk about the multi-material versus the monomaterial laminates, it's a question of what the barrier is made out of. So if we have the multi-material laminates, The barrier is often then made of another polymer like polyamide or PET or PVC. And these are polymers that are not compatible with the polyolefin, with the polyethylene or polypropylene that we might then have in the outer layer. So coming to the mono materials that we have discussed, they have then other barriers. So EVOH is the most common barrier. It has really good gas barrier properties. But there are also other alternatives like ALOX, COX, and metallization. So these are all potentially compatible to some extent, but the question is how much. And also in these constructions, we have adhesive layers, and many times it's polyurethane-based adhesives. And the question is how the recyclability is influenced by the adhesives. And yeah, like Fabrizio also mentioned in the Recyclas protocols, these issues are addressed in order to guarantee a good recyclability. So in our project, we are searching and we will test the recyclability of high barrier flexible packages with the potential to increase the sorting degree of plastics recycling by 10%. And we will focus on investigating monolaminate solutions and the influence of barriers and adhesives on recyclability. But as we have discussed here, of course, labels and lacquers are really important issues too. Now, this is a Swedish project financed by Vinnova, the Swedish Innovation Agency. It started in November last year and will continue until December 2023. And we have 20 project partners within the complete value chain. We have several brand owners, some of them here in the audience, which is very nice. We have material suppliers and packaging producers. We have collecting and recycling, also some here today. And the research institutes RISE and IVL. Yes, so in the project, we have started out with the market analysis. Hanna has worked in that work package. And the scope has been to map the current use of complex multi-material layers and monomaterial layers for plastic packaging on the Swedish market. We have a work package starting right now, which concerns sorting, and that's a Swedish plastic recyclers working in that. And it shows some films will be tested for sorting by adjusting the NIR sensor settings, and potentially a better sorting will be achieved. Then in the we will test the recyclability, and that will be done at RISE. So we will have the evaluation of recyclability by compounding and forming, film ballooning or extrusion, and the testing of properties. We have a work package with the recycling manual. So the results from previous work package will be used to update recommendations in FTI's plastic packaging recycling manual. And we will perform demonstration, and that is industrial demonstration of production, functionality, and recycling to a new product. So I will go into presenting some preliminary results from the market analysis that was performed by IVL. So In the current situation, we have many different plastic films available on the market. Combinations of PP, PE, PET, and polyamide, for example, and different barriers, as some of them I have already mentioned. EVOH, COX, ALOX metallization, but also aluminum foil, of course. And it can be concluded that it has not been possible to estimate the amount of flexible food packaging on the Swedish market. That's due to several reasons. Some of them are confidential information from the companies, but also that we do import a lot of products with flexible packaging that have an unknown construction or content. There are several mono PE and mono PP films available on the market, and the little asterisk at the PP film is related to that it will be sorted out as a separate fraction from 2023, or at least from 2024, at Site 0 in Motala. But concerning the monolaminate films, the number of layers in different films varies depending on the product, and also the thickness. These are questions that we have included in this market analysis. And polyurethane-based adhesives are most widely used, with layer thicknesses around 1 to 2 microns. Around 5% EVOH is a very common amount of the barrier in the total packaging, with a thickness around 1 to 3 microns. And the EVOH is the main barrier utilized in flexible food packaging. Other barriers relevant for this project will be metallization, COX, and ALOX. Continuing with future trends, on high barrier flexible packaging, the recyclability and sustainability aspects are really important. There seems to be a real transition towards monomaterials, also more bio-based alternatives, also, or maybe unfortunately, mixed materials, plastics and papers. A lot on innovation and new solutions are going on. And overall, an increased use of flexible packaging, as well as more polypropylene. Some common hurdles when transitioning to monomaterials. One thing is, of course, to guarantee the functionality of the material. And that includes, of course, food safety, shelf life, and also production rate. Producers, of course, need to use the current machinery in order to do the transition. And there is this point of time consumption. Also found during all these interviews that has been performed is that there is a need for some common agreed upon definitions. For example, what metallization is versus aluminum foil. And also when we are talking about layers, what actually is called a layer or counted as a layer. Yes, and in all interviews, of course, food safety and functionality of the material will always be the main concern. And yes, of course, from a producer point of view, that's really possible to understand. So the expressed interest among partners and others that have been interviewed is that we should investigate and test the limit of EVOH in flexible packaging when it comes to the recyclability. So today, as we heard Fabrizio mention, there is this limit of 5% EVOH, and that will be tested or investigated in the project. What it means if we to have this limit and the impact on the recyclability. At this point, the market penetration is not higher than 2%. Yes, we will have to have a look at that. We will investigate the adhesives impact on recycling, and that question comes back again and again. There has been really interesting and a big interest also in that we should investigate printing and lacquer's impact on recycling, but that's actually is deemed to be outside the scope of this project. So we think that will be the target for another project. And then also it's a big interest, of course, in FTI's design for recycling guidelines to clarify and give examples of plastic films that are recyclable. So we have collected suggestions of films to be tested for both then sorting and recyclability. So we have here co-extruded polyethylene and EVOH with different number of layers. This is actually the same material in the second suggestion, but different number of layers. The corresponding or the same, but PP instead of PE. We look at laminates with adhesives. Yes, so with oriented film. And also we will have a look at metallized oriented PP. And some additional suggestion will be laminate with where we can study the adhesive without the influence of EVOH at the same time. And that, of course, it's interesting to study in order to separate the influence of EVOH and adhesive. And we will mainly look at transparent films, and that has to do, among others, on how the to evaluate the recyclate, where we have had and read through the Recyclas protocols. Actually, I will come back to that. Concerning the work package about sorting, we will test many different monolaminate films to find out how sorting is done with the current settings. And then there will be studies made in the lab at Tomra. And it's Rickard Jansson. He is responsible for this work package. So it will be really exciting to learn from the many different sample of films that we do collect from the partners, the film producing partners. And then we will develop the sorting process. And in the work package about recyclability, we have been looking and we have considered the Recyclas recycling protocols. They are really interesting and well built up. So we will do compounding of monolaminate films and in that way obtain monolaminate recyclate. We will do film forming, mainly blowing, with varying the ratio of the recyclate and the virgin material. Perform the evaluation of films, and when it comes to PP, possibly also other forming methods and evaluation of the mechanical properties. And then we will have the demonstration of the recyclability by using the recyclate in a small production process. Yes, so finally, what is then today regarded as recyclable? Well, there are several European recycling guidelines and manuals. So Recyclas is one, C-Flex is another. There is one called Cyclodes HTP and FTI, the Swedish one, of course. All of them have recommendations concerning the amount of barrier material, and most of them also concerning adhesives. And the recommendation is a maximum around 10% of the total that is added, and around 5% for the EVOH. But FTI has the recommendation for EVOH today, their recommendation is 2%. Yes, so it will be very exciting a year ahead to see what results we will have. And yes, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Karin. And welcome to everybody into the panel discussion. I hope you have had an enjoyable time, an interesting time listening to these three presentations. And now comes the Inquisition. The first question I will actually put to Hanna Unsbo because she didn't speak so far. And then you will all see who she is. But Hanna, I understand that you did quite much of the interviews. So I would like to ask, it's a practical question. How do you feel that the candidates you interviewed were willing to do some change? Did they really show a positive attitude towards this?
Yes, I would say that everyone has been very forthcoming, having done the interviews, all of them actually. Everyone has been very interested in doing well and wanting to transition towards a more sustainable packaging. And yes, everyone has been very positive and wanting to help us understand the problem that Karin has presented.
Good, good. As you can see, I still have Rickard on the right side, who has collected all the questions from the web.
Yes, and a lot of questions have been raised.
There are 2 or 3 questions, yeah, good.
I think I have about 20, so we can go on for the whole evening.
But is there anybody in the audience who wants to start? Yes, there is one at the middle here. Lina, you have a mic? She's coming with a mic. So we first have this question from the audience here live. Lady with the flower on the sweater.
Hello, and thank you for a great presentation. My name is Sofia, and I work at ICA, the biggest retailer in Sweden, and I work with packaging. But thank you so much. And I have a questions to Ansgar from MAG. Why can't PU inks be used on the outside? And do we need to move away from outside printed single films? What do you say?
I think so. This is the actual situation. Polyurethane inks have the property that they cannot be used on the outside, on the surface. That means, the ink suppliers are working on it, but at the moment, due to chemical or physical properties, it does not work. And as I said, it is also a chance. Of course, you cannot use then lacquers, matte lacquers or something on the outside, but the advantage for recycling is huge. So we really recommend put the inks in somewhere in the middle.
But then we have the adhesive instead.
No,
In
the
between.
adhesive. The adhesive is next to the ink.
Yeah.
And this is also polyurethane based, so there is no problem. This will not have a negative impact on recyclability. So you also really could say that it has an impact of 0, which means maybe you could increase something else if that's necessary, like EVOH, because the inks do not have any negative impact.
Thank you. I have a colleague here.
Thanks. I'm Tove from the other bigger retailer. Not the biggest. Okay. So I'm just thinking about this situation again that you were just speaking about, because when you then use a laminate instead of a monofilm, which is printed on the outside, then you usually have to increase the thickness. But how do you see this perspective of the other way, doing a monofilm, which is printed on the outside, or a laminate, which is printed on the inside with the adhesive, and then it's becoming thicker? Do you have a perspective on this?
This depends on the application. But for example, if you have a 40 micron film, monomaterial, you can replace it by 2x20 with the ink inside. Of course, it's more expensive than a monomaterial. But yeah, as I said, you have to see it as a whole picture. If I include it into the process-oriented thinking, then the total cost of this might be lower than the old version.
Mm. Okay.
But
thanks.
it's not a matter of thickness and additional volume, and so this doesn't have to be.
Okay, maybe it's different between different suppliers as well. My understanding was that it needs to become thicker, but maybe not in all applications then. That's
No,
good.
no.
Perfect. Thanks.
Any other from the audience? Okay, Ansgar, I want to follow up on this NC printing base. Does it mean that all surface printed films today are made with NC-based prints?
No, there are also water-based inks, for example, which you can put on the outside. But yeah, if you see the whole picture, then the PU inks make sense, because if they are put in the inner layer, then the recycling is much easier. Water-based inks have many disadvantages in terms of printing quality and so on. So at least you can discuss it. We recommend to use PU inks and adhesives. Certain.
But there's already a very large volume of cast PP monofilms, and also, of course, in the polyethylene film, which is not part of this meeting today, but still, which are mainly surface printed.
Yes, that's happening, yes.
Yeah, and that is then this famous nitro something cellulose type of inks, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
We found that that we even printed white ink on film, recycled it, and the result was black. And this was only due to the description of NC properties of the temperature where they start to burn. And it's gassing. You shouldn't forget. The gassing is also a problem. If you have it in the supermarket, this smelling, nobody wants it.
Richard, do you have some follow-ups?
Yes, I certainly have. Maybe a couple of those can be directed to Recyclas and Francesco. The first one is the impact that labels have on recycling, and how labels, how you should think about labels in design for recycling. Are labels a good option, and when are they a good option?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Label should be well designed to get recycled. First of all, the label should be made as much as possible with the same polyolefin material. So for PP flexibles, the label should be in PP or in PE. because sometimes the label size is and the weight, so in terms of concentration, is negligible. Paper labels should be avoided, even though are often used on as decorative element on PP and PE flexibles, because the paper label need more adhesive. The chemistry of the adhesive is different, is a little bit more difficult to dissolve in the water, and also because then the paper label are made by paper. So paper is a completely different material that can also generate fibers during the washing operation. The fibers cannot get stopped altogether in the filter. So when the fibers will go in the extruder, they will burn at 90 degrees, and at the end of the day, you will have black spots on the recyclate. I think no one would like to have black spots on the recyclate. So my suggestion is to go for polypropylene or polyethylene, whatever possible, by applying soluble adhesive, whatever possible.
Another question to you, Fabrizio, is in regards to the adhesives that we have talked a lot about here in laminates. I know that Recyclas have also made a lot of or some work on this. Can you comment on what is your standpoint at the moment for adhesives in laminated structures?
Yeah, thank you, Ricard. Indeed. At the end of the day, when I started my presentation in terms of guidelines, I first of all focused on monomaterial, what does it mean, and how Recyclas create some lever about the amount of polypropylene or polyethylene you need in the film. But then today, everyone is looking to, okay, but what about the compatibility with recycling of all the rest? And when we started, we assumed that there was a big lack of knowledge by our industry in terms of compatibility. So we have decided to not put not reliable information in the guidelines. So for laminating adhesive, we have started working with the adhesive manufacturer 2 years ago. And we have a working group where we have tested several laminating adhesive structure for PE and PP. And we haven't found yet the right way to report this information in the guidelines. But we have already tested and approved some laminated structure for both PP and PE because the chemistry matter, and this is the most complex to report in a guidelines. But what is really matter is also the amount of adhesive. So first of all, the suggestion is to limit the amount, so the gram per square meter, or the concentration by weight, if you like, as much as possible. In terms of concentration by weight, I would suggest, independently by the chemistry, to stay, whatever possible, below 2% by weight in the packaging for both PP and PE flexibles. But in terms of solvent-free, solvent-based, we cannot say that solvent-free is better than solvent-based. And we cannot say that aromatic isocyanates are better than aliphatic. Yes, aromatic can prove a little bit more yellowish during the extruder, so a little bit more degradation. But by having tested so many different structures, I can tell you that this, in terms of chemistry, is most complex than that. But with our partners now, we are looking to finalize this very long test campaigns, and in Q3, Q4 this year, we will update the Recyclas guidelines with the most reliable information we can share.
Thank you. I guess that many are looking forward to the new information in the guidelines. Maybe a question to Karin, because I know that you have some other work going on at RISE in regards to PCR in food packaging, so post-consumer recyclates in food packaging. Do you see that this will be possible in the future, and what kind of projects are you doing at RISE in regards to this?
Yes, it's interesting. A colleague of mine, Mattias Andersson, he is finalizing a project where where they have tested to incorporate recycled material between layers of virgin materials, and they have done several penetration studies. I know that they are also testing this with barriers in there, and I can't remember the complete results of this, but there are some promising results. But what this in the end will mean, I think there might need to be another project, but otherwise please come back to me and I will forward the question to Matthias. There is more than I know of, but there are projects going on.
Thank you.
Say something to this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good luck with the trials.
So maybe one for you, Ansgar. How do we convince the product owners that the package design must be based on recycling ability or recyclability?
Luckily, we don't have to convince them. This is done by law. So the legislation requires it. From 2030, we all have to be recyclable. And if you are not, then you are out of the game. So it's from that viewpoint, it's very easy.
Maybe another one. I'm not sure if anyone can answer it. What requirements can we place on our suppliers to ensure a better handling of the waste at the end of the life cycle? So I guess that it's also something that is if a producer comes to you, Ansgar, or to other film manufacturers, what should they require?
In terms of recyclability, you mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I think that today's way that we are manufacturers of packaging, that we deliver it to brand owners and then it's collected by official places. This is the best way to do it. I only speaking for flexible packaging, I cannot imagine that taking materials back and recycle them would be a good point for us. Nobody will do it because if you get it back, then especially if you are working in the fields of food packaging, then you have problems with contamination and so on. It's so difficult and dangerous. We would never do it.
A question maybe for all of you. How fast do you think that the transition to recyclable, flexible packaging will be? What are the drivers and limiting factors? Maybe if you could pick up one thing from your perspective, what are the important drivers and limiting factors for changing the market? Maybe first to Fabrizio.
Thanks. The driver, as always, is the legislator. And I can tell you that the Commission is working hard to make the true circularity happening. So I would like to really say that I'm fully aligned with what Ansgar said. At the end of the day, it will happen. Not important if Recyclas or whatever other association, institution, initiative will do. The Commission is fully engaged to ensure that plastic will become a truly circular material. And to make it happen, we need to reinforce our legislation. Between 2025 and 2030, you will see that the Commission will make this play harder and harder. The market will receive a shock, that's for sure. But today, we have already on the market packaging that are really designed for recycling. Just because in the last few years, there are companies that invest a lot of time and money in R&D and decided to go in one strict direction.
I think that Hanna was mentioning, or Karin in the presentation from the IVL study mentioned some of the limiting factors. Can you raise them again?
Yeah, so during our project we found that a couple of limiting factors or hurdles. One thing that we found that we actually didn't mention during our presentation is that it's very hard to actually understand what's on the market. There's so many different types of laminates, and it's very hard to get specific facts or amounts of these. So to do this mapping has been very challenging, and so that is something that we need to understand what we have to do. We need to understand what's on the market in more than just estimations, and that's something that we found, and we would love to see some changes in that, making it easier.
And that's what Ansgar is trying to do, make it easier with only PP packaging. Do you want to comment on the question here, the maybe limiting factors that are the most struggling ones to overcome?
There are definitely quick wins that we can make. Very easy transformation, but on the other hand, you also have applications like thermoforming. If you have today a thermoforming machine, which is ideal for polyester PE laminates, then you cannot expect that this will perform a monomaterial of polypropylene in the same way. And I think nobody can expect that each supplier can change this from today to tomorrow. But this is exactly the request that we have today to the brand owners or to the packers. We now have the time until 2030, let's say. So from today, they have 8 years to change, to invest and to divest. It will be too late if you start in 28. Then the time is a little bit short, and then this maybe is one of the final mistakes that they do. Starting at once and then starting with the easy wins is the best, and accept that there are some things taking 1 or 2 or 3 years.
Thank you. I have received a lot of more questions.
One last question, maybe?
Yeah.
Do you have one more last question?
No, I think that we will save them, but we will try to answer every question that we have received, and I will make sure that FDI provide everyone with some sort of link.
Last question from the audience then.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, Ansgar convinced you over lunch that PP is the solution. Just curious then, because Karin and Hannah mentioned that shelf life, among other things, will be affected. So do you have like an estimate how much like shelf life would be reduced? And also, like I'm in the potato chip business, so we are like UV protection is needed, and then also shelf life is also crucial like for our customers, and especially when it comes to export. So what would be like realistic to achieve with just a PP film?
I would think that, especially for your application, I do not expect a really important change of shelf life. The question is, if you have coffee, for example, with a shelf life of 2 years, then I might ask for the first time, is it really fit for purpose? Is it really necessary? Or can we reduce it a bit? We have in some parts for wet wipe packaging, we have a customer with 30 months shelf life. Yes, if he wants 30 months, maybe he has to remain with aluminum and wait what happens in 2030. But if everybody else can do it with 18 months, then the question might be, why do you need 30 months? Is it just your marketing? Everybody has to estimate it for himself. And there we can only give information. Polypropylene has different properties. With this, you can reach it, and then the customer can decide if he takes it or leaves it.
Thanks.
All right. That was the last question. Thank you for that here in the audience. Thank you, everybody. Most of all, speakers from prominent companies throughout the value chain, including Fabrizio in Italy as well, from Recyclas, doing a systematic approach there. And thank you, Richard and Matthias, for organizing the event. Fantastic. Has been very interesting. Maybe I forgot. Sorry. Not only Svensk Plaståtervinning was part of this, but also FTI, of course, not to forget. And on their behalf, I can only say thank you to all, online, live, on the audience. We will have a mingle. Sorry for you home, you will not be participating, but we will enjoy it. Thank you.